Two legendary horror directors, one chilling anthology. Does Two Evil Eyes still hold up today? So I just discovered this from my friend's Plex server, but I've never heard of this movie before. It's a George Romero from Night of the Living Dead and Dario Argento, best known for Suspiria, teaming up for an Edgar Allan Poe inspired horror anthology. I'll be looking at both segments separately, talking about performances, the direction, and the overall impact. Two Evil Eyes was released in 1990, a sort of transitional time for horror. The 80s were dominated by slasher films, but the genre was shifting towards psychological horror and supernatural themes. And horror anthologies were popular, especially for Romero, who was involved with Creepshow in 1982 and Tales from the Crypt the same year, 1990. And I think Two Evil Eyes stands out as like this serious gothic horror approach compared to like more playful horror anthologies at the time. But let's start with the first segment, which is The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar, directed by George A. Romero. A woman, played by Adrian Barbo, and her lover use hypnosis to manipulate her dying husband for financial gain, only to unleash supernatural terror. This one definitely belongs in something like Creepshow. Obviously, Romero, Barbo, a woman and her lover tried to kill the husband. Yeah, that sounds straight up from Creepshow. And Adrian Barbo, she performs a great, strong, cold performance as someone plotting to kill her husband. E.G. Marshall plays a lawyer and adds a sense of authority to the segment. This is more psychological horror for George Romero. It's really constrained from his previous works, like his zombie movies or even like his horror anthology. This is much more narrowed down to the psychological aspect of it. There's a twist I didn't really expect about midway through, and yeah, it goes down the more supernatural path after that. But it is quite disturbing in a way when you find out this person may or may not still be alive in a freaking freezer. That's interesting with the characters. No one's like strictly evil. No one's obviously good in this, but it does have some fully fleshed out characters in this. Segment 2 is The Black Cat, directed by Dario Argento. A crime scene photographer played by Harvey Kittel slowly unravels as his obsession with the mysterious black cat leads him to madness and murder. Even though Argento and Romero have been collaborators through most of their career, they definitely have their own style. And it's nice to see it in this, where there are such stark comparisons to both of the stories. And I've seen other iterations of the Black Cat. I think the most notable one is the one from Masters of Horror, starring Jeffrey Combs, which I actually met him and I told him how much I appreciated the depiction of Edgar Allan Poe. I think Harvey Kittel really carries this, and he makes it like my favorite of the two. He's just so intense, unhinged, and just, he completely owns it. And I'm a Harvey Kittel fanboy, okay? He was in one of my favorite movies growing up, Reservoir Dogs, and he goes all out in this.
And I didn't kill her! Yes, you did. It's a fucking cat! No!
And Argento's style really comes through this segment with the bold colors, the surreal horror, and the giallo-inspired violence. It's definitely gorier and more visually striking compared to Romero's segment, which I said Romero is holding back in his. Tom Savini does the practical effects in this, and he does a great job, as usual, especially at this time, with the decaying corpse effect in the Romero version and a completely brutal and unflinching murder scene in the Argento version. Naturally, never of hearing about this movie until recently. I had to look up some of the trivia, and this was actually part of a 4-part anthology with Argento and Romero, along with John Carpenter and Wes Craven. But due to the budget limitations, only did the 2 stories. Could you fucking imagine like a horror anthology with segments directed by Romero and Argento and Carpenter and Craven. I'm like, that's a complete shame that we didn't get that. The film was a box office flop that has gained a cult following, which is still surprising to me that I still haven't heard of either of these movies in this entire time. That's like my favorite genre, and I looked for obscure horror movies I haven't seen, and yeah, this is quite a movie. I like it because Romero and Argento just have the very different filmmaking styles, and there's a really unique contrast in both stories in tone. But I think that's why you don't see horror anthologies with just 2 stories or 3 or more, because man, they really stretched out these stories. They weren't meant to be like an hour apiece. I think that's my main gripe with it. So compared to other horror anthologies, say like Creepshow or Tales from the Dark Side or Trick or Treat, I really do prefer those over this. I'm glad I watched this. I probably won't be returning to it. I'll watch Creepshow, even the crappy second part of it. Trick or Treat, that's almost like a yearly watch for me. And Tales from the Dark Side came out the same year. And I grew up watching Tales from the Dark Side, the show and the movie, and I definitely prefer Tales from the Dark Side to this. Not saying that this is not worth watching. If you love both these directors, if you like horror anthology or horror in general, this is definitely a must watch. So overall, I'd give Two Evil Eyes 3 stars, slightly above average. I liked it quite a bit. I think it's definitely worth watching, and I'm totally glad I watched it.
2 evil eyes, and discover how terrified you are of your own fear.
But what did you think of Two Evil Eyes? Let me know down in the comments. Maybe there's another horror anthology I'm missing here. I've seen Body Bags. Body Bags is pretty good. I've seen that recently. But if you have any recommendations, put them down below. Make sure to hit that like button. It really helps small channels like this. If you like this and you made it here all this way to the end, maybe subscribe. And I'll see you later. Bye.